Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cool plants. And today I'm in a rose garden here in Walnut Creek, California. We're about 30 minutes east of San Francisco, up here in the Bay Area. And I've got the privilege of sharing all of these different roses and some issues that are happening here and how Ivory Organics can benefit these plants. The first thing, let me give you a tour of some of these flowers. Again, we're at the end of November, so most of the rose gardens I've visited have very little happening, but there's a few roses I'd like to share with you and take a look at some of the beauty that's here in the garden. Again, at the last week of November. Check this out. So the first step when pruning your roses is always to be deadheading, always. And this is throughout the whole year, is to always be looking for roses that are spent. As you can see on the tip of this end over here, you can see that the plant has now gone into what's going to become the fruit or the seeds for the rose. But the first thing you're going to want to do to make sure your roses are continuously blooming is to remove these, as the plants are wasting a lot of its resources towards now putting its energy towards seed production instead of more flower production, which is what we're looking for. Let me show you some more rose hips, which are the seed pods for these roses. Check this out over here. If we zoom in over here, you can take a look. Beautiful seed pods over here. But again, instead of it going into more bloom, it's putting its time, energy, and effort towards seeding. If it's your goal to actually be planting the seeds of these roses, it could be a good idea to take these rose hips and just allow them to continue to mature on the plant. If you come spring, take these rose hips, and let me open this up for you. You could end up planting these seeds that are in here and end up growing varieties of roses that might be superior, as it probably crossed with a few other varieties of roses to create new varieties that could maybe be desired, if not just by you, maybe the world. Maybe you're the next world-renowned rose grower. So all of these seeds are genetically going to be different in variety than the roses in which it came. Just as children to parents, the children's are not clones of their parents. They're not genetically identical. They're all different. So the genetics in here of each seed is going to be a genetically different rose. So if you plant it, you're going to end up creating rose varieties that are unique to yourself, and maybe you can put your name and attach that to it. Now let's talk about pruning. So to my right over here is a rose bush that was pruned by the owner, and you can see that they've brought it down quite a bit. You can tell based on these cuts that the plant was probably measuring an extra 2 or 3 feet taller. They've brought it down, and since then it's produced some more roses, as evidenced by these rose hips as well. And again, it's wasting its time, energy, and effort towards seeding. So we're going to remove those. But what I want to share with you, if you come in a little closer, you'll notice that some of these branches have crisscrossed. So my first tip to you is to make sure that none of the branches, and this applies not just to roses, but also for your fruit trees and ornamental trees, that when you see 2 branches crisscrossing, as these have down here, you can see this branch and this branch, these 2 have crossed one another. You, as the owner of this plant, have an artistic decision to make on whether or not you're going to keep this branch or that branch, as both of these are going to ultimately be competing for sunlight when both of these end up going into when those buds develop into leaves, and the leaves are going to be competing for sunlight to support the flowers that they're going to have up above. So between these 2 structures, you might want to get rid of the old, as that's going to be my decision, is to remove the older branch, and I'm going to go as low as I can and remove that stem, and out it comes. So now I've just removed the older stem to create now a newer stem. The other thing when looking at the stem is to determine in which direction are the branches going to go. Since this branch is towards the middle and leaning back, we want to make sure that it's not growing back towards the center. You usually want the plant to have an open, airy feel. So of the buds that I select that are in the best position are actually back here, and I'm going to bring it down all the way to this point. If you zoom in, you can see that there's a bud right in this position down here. right over here. And that's gonna grow away from the plant. So I'm gonna prune it accordingly at this location. And here we go, like so. And I'm gonna cut it a 1/4 inch away from the bud and at an angle so that if any rain comes on it, that it actually comes off. And I've left a little bit more space on the side of the bud than I did behind on the back side of the node. And now we're gonna continue this process for other branches that we see that may potentially be crossing. This one here is another one that I determined to be a little bit too close. And so we're just gonna remove it. And out it comes. And when taking a look at this branch over here, again, I can see that this bud is pointing towards the inside, but this branch over here, you can see indicated by the leaf, this bud is gonna be going away from the center of the plant. I'm gonna allow that to occur. So I'm gonna cut it like so. And I'm gonna continue this process throughout the rest of the plant. The other thing too that it's important to do is to coat these surfaces. And we're gonna coat them now with a product called Ivy Organics 3-in-1 Tree Guard Paint. And here's the product. It's Ivy Organic. It's a 3-in-1 tree guard paint where you just add water. It's a natural tree trunk and branch barrier protection against damaging sunburn and insects and rodents for use on your roses, fruit and nut trees, ornamental trees and shrubs. And it's a non-toxic, environmentally safe and organic product. And up here it says ideal for new plantings and transplants, save injured and damaged trees, prune and expose surfaces. And that's gonna be our #1 goal right now, is to cover those prune and exposed surfaces. So let's open the can over here. And I've mixed it just before the video, but it comes as an organic paint powder with the oils. And the oils, again, help to repel any rodents from chewing on the branches and trunk. But what we want to use it predominantly for today is to seal these ends, as these ends are now exposed for wood-boring insects to get into it and into the heart of the plant and compromise the life of the rose. So we've got those coated. Let me show you what I'm talking about with another rose that's next to me. And the other thing I want to share with you, you may notice this gold label over here, and it says on here it's registered material for use in organic agriculture. This label will be on all of the products going forward into later winter and early spring. So take a look at that on your store shelves or the places that you're shopping for the gold label Ivy Organics, which are coming soon. Take a look now behind me. So now take a look over here on the end of this particular rose, and you'll notice that there's a tunnel from an insect that is bored through the exposed pruned job and has now worked its way into the heart of the wood. And so to prevent this issue from happening, as we did earlier, we're going to want to coat it with the Ivy Organics 3-in-1. And that'll now seal it. And it's also an effective repellent to many insects. And there's another instance over here if you come in a little lower. I've got my finger on it. You can see that's another opening. Let me remove that leaf that's in your way. Hopefully you can see that a little more clearly right over here. And we're going to close that opening as well. And then we're going to take our time and cover all of the pruned surfaces for these roses. So great that we're enjoying roses that I get to share with the owner this late in November. Anyways, if you found this video informative, be sure to like it, and most importantly, subscribe down below so you'll be connected to all the other educational Ivy Organics gardening videos. Thanks again for watching, and happy gardening.